Good afternoon, good morning, good night, depending on which part of the world you're watching this video from. I am Blackbright and I'm broadcasting out of the UK. And I decided to do a video today about the car wash because I've never actually thought about it today. And that's why I've called this video, Are We Enabling Undocumented Immigrants? Because when we think about undocumented immigrants, they are usually those who've overstayed for whatever reason. They could have got married, the marriage is broken down. They could have come over here as a student and decided that they weren't going back, or they didn't renew their visa or whatever the reason. They're in the country without a status, without proper documentation. And so these undocumented people are looking for all different ways to survive, and we can be inadvertently helping them or funding them without realizing it. And why I thought about that was because I saw a video today of the immigration officers, and they were closing down a lot of car washes. So they're going around all these car wash places around the UK, and they're checking whether or not the people who are working there are undocumented. Now, they found an Asian car wash. I'm not quite sure which part of the world it was, but he had two documented workers and one undocumented worker. Well, the undocumented worker had shown him a verified copy of the passport. It had been verified by a solicitor, and he had shown him that as proof that he was a documented person. But when the immigration officers went into the place, they said that wasn't proper evidence and that he couldn't use that photocopy or the verified copy, or what they call notarized copy, as a proof of legitimacy in the country. Now, would you believe that they fined that car wash owner £5,000? I couldn't believe it. They threatened him with 10,000 and he got fined £5,000 for having one undocumented worker working at the car wash. Now, when we go to the car washes, well, when I do, I look for the cheapest deal, to be honest, because I just think, who's going to wash my car the cleanest and where can I go and get it done the cheapest? I know that they have these ones where you go through and you can do half of it yourself, but I'm a bit lazy. I want it done properly. So I go to these places, you get 3 or 4 people, they're all washing your car, they charge you a tenner and you're good to go. They do inside and out. But it never occurred to me for 1 minute that they could be undocumented. Maybe they're not. But the thought that the immigration officers are now going around checking car washes to see if people are unlawfully working, that kind of made me think about that. Then what I thought was unfair, in this same video, I think it's Jagged Singh, he does it on YouTube. They stopped a freight lorry. Now, the freight lorry had 7 undocumented immigrants on it. Would you believe they only fined that freight company $2,500 and the driver $1,400? What I don't understand is, why would they fine a little business owner who's just got 3 workers, and one, it would different if all 3 of them was undocumented, but only one, and they fined him 5,000. Yet a big freight company, they fine them 2,500. I don't understand the disparity there. But, you know, there's a lot of undocumented people trying to survive. And I was watching another video, because I watch all these different videos of how, you know, undocumented people come in. Another guy was coming in, he was coming in from America. He had $400 on him. He had about 3 suitcases. Apparently he was coming here on holiday. So why I'm calling it, are we enabling it? Because he was coming to stay with a friend. So the friend was obviously putting him up. I don't know if the friend thought he was overstaying or whether he was really staying for the 6 months. But the problem was with that is that even though he had his papers and even though he had his visa, who he said he was staying with was correct. The immigration officers called the person who he was staying with. But then when they called him and said, oh, are you going to fund whatever his name was? Are you going to fund him for the duration of his stay? The guy said, oh, yes, I'm going to fund him. I'm going to pay all his costs. And then they said, so how long have you known him? And he must have said 2 years. And they said, where did you know him from? And he said, Germany. Now, that was something that came off the cuff. So when he goes back to this guy now, even though the guy says he can fund him for those 6 months, it doesn't stop there. They then say to him, so where do you know this guy that you're going to stay with from? He said, oh, in New York. And then he said, so how long have you known him? He said, I've known him 10 years. So immediately, it's all gone kaput. They couldn't even get their stories tallied up. So obviously there's something not right. There's something not bona fide. There's some deception going on. So of course they send his butt back to America. But the point is there's so many different people coming to the UK. I don't know what it is. This guy was asking a guy from Afghanistan, and he said, what is it about England? Why you want to stay? And they were saying, oh, well, you know, France, we can't get in. I thought, bloody charming. Because you can't get into France, you come to England. But, you know, it's not even funny. It's just that, you know, it's good to be aware of what's going on and how we can be inadvertently facilitating this. I noticed that there's a cab company. They also, these immigration people, they ain't rumping. They stopped this taxi man. Well, he was coming through the airport. He must have gone to India or something for a holiday. Coming back from India, he's got his papers and everything. So they said to him, so you're coming here on a student visa? He said, yes. And he said, so what's the name of the course? And I think he made up some course. And they said, so you sure you're not going to come here to work? And he said, no, I'm not coming here to work. And then I don't know how they knew where I think somebody they called a relative, and the relative let it slip out that he was doing taxi cabbing. So the taxi cab place, when they started asking further questions, the guy must have realised he'd said too much and clamped up. But they gave the immigration officer enough information, so he then called the taxi place, only to find out that this guy's been working there for 3 years, full time. He ain't going to no college. So then I understand what's happening here, because a lot of them are coming in. They don't mind paying the $4,000 or whatever it is to under the guise of going to university, but then that's not what they're doing. They're doing something totally different. And, you know, the old bill or the immigration officers are cottoned on. So now, I'm sorry to give all these examples, but I just think it's fascinating, really. So then they had this Asian guy. This Asian guy says he's coming in. He's paid for his course, you know, £4,000. He's paid for the course. He's got all his documentation correct. So they said, what kind of course are you doing? He's doing some postgraduate degree course or something. Well, I don't think it's postgraduate. It must be undergraduate for 4,000. But whatever it was, you needed a certain command of English. So this guy's come from India. Sorry to keep talking about India, but this is where they just happen to be coming from. And this guy, he says, so how is the course constructed? And he's like looking at him, and then he says, you know, tell me a bit about the course. He says, oh, the course, you know, I go to the course 2 years. He didn't understand what the immigration officer was asking him. So then the immigration officer deduces that if you can't even understand a basic question, how the hell are you going to do a course? So that was another, probably another way of saying, okay, I'm going to pay for the course. They're going to believe me because I paid for the course. But when I come over, he won't be able to do the course because he hasn't got adequate English. So I can understand why all these things are in place. What's interesting is, though, is that how we enable them, whether we take the taxes, we can't ask everybody whether or not they're an undocumented person. You know, if you're going to a car wash, I'm not going to go up to them and say, oh, are you undocumented? It's, you know, I just want to get my car washed. You know what I mean? And the same way, like friends, you know, that friend that was allowing that guy to come over, I don't know if he was going to stay, I don't know. But they've got something written into this law now. I can't remember what the law is because I didn't really expect to go there. But it's actually about, you can be done for assisting or facilitating an undocumented person. So whereas that friend, I don't know what happened. I don't know if they're going to go and get him and say, well, it didn't happen, so they can't. But you've got to be so careful. You can do things without even realising it. And you could be seen to be enabling. So we have, you know, it's not only the undocumented people who have to watch their backs, but it's the general public or people who may not even know that they're facilitating, that have to also be careful. Because God forbid you can be doing something with someone you don't even know that they're illegal. It's not like you're going to go around asking people, oh, are you documented? You're not going to do that. So I don't know. Anyway, there was one, it's a Ghanaian now. I'll move shift from the Indians now. There was a Ghanaian. All in this one video, you know, you have to see it's Jangit Sin. This Ghanaian now, he's now, they stopped him. I don't know why they stopped him, but they know he's in the country illegally and they want to nab his passport. So all the immigrations then barge into his house shouting, immigration, immigration. They're looking for his passport. They can't find it. They find a notarized copy, and that's what he's been using to get a job, not the hard copy passport. So because they couldn't get the hard copy passport, they had to release him and ask him to report to, I don't know if it's a police station or the immigration office, I don't know. But he's now free to report. I think they're going to catch up with him at some point. But it's just what people go through in order to stay, and it's just survival. A lot of it is survival. I mean, whether they come over here and they don't realise how expensive it is and they don't know how they're going to pay their way to get back, I don't know. But a lot of times when they're taking on these jobs or working in car washes or whatever, doing taxi cabs, because I'd imagine taxi cabs are quite hard to track down. But regardless of what they're doing, it's their way of feeding themselves and keeping their head above water. And yes, it's draining the competition when it's actually halting the competition, and it is making it rough for other people. But I just thought I'd put it out there because, you know, we wouldn't really think about car washes. Well, I wouldn't. And so therefore, what do? I probably have to go to a regular one and pay the extra £3. But I'm sure even those places, and I wonder those places that they have in these malls and car parks, I wonder if they're legit. I'll tell you something, the more you look into this thing, the more you realise how big it is. But I think it's only big because, you know, we're finding out more and more about it. But I still don't think the numbers are as great as they say they are. I just think a lot of them are just coming out of the woodwork. Anyway, that's all for now. Bye-bye.